Hey, it's Jeff again. Now, normally this would be the video when I'd be talking about our deliverable for this week, but since Project 2 just came in and we have kind of a short week next week because of the holiday break, there's not going to be a deliverable due next week. Instead, we're just going to have the rough draft again of Project 3 due a week from this coming Wednesday. You do have a read assignment, though, and I'm going to be releasing screencasts throughout next week and into the following week. They're going to cover the chapters I've asked you to read. Now, most of these are chapters I actually asked you to read for last week, but if you didn't get around to them, you might want to take a look at them this week. A lot of material there that's going to be very useful to you in writing Project 3. So this is the first of those videos. It's on Chapter 4. Now, Chapter 4 is not the first chapter I asked you to read, but it's the one that's probably most important for you to read if you want to begin planning how to write Project 3, which, again, is a genre critique. So let's take a quick look. You can see a link here under 12. See if I look like this. It looks like I'm looking at the page. Does it seem like that? Does it seem like I'm going to touch it? I'm going to touch the... I can't see through my own hand. I'm going to touch... You see, look right there is the... It says weeks 12 and 13 because I combined them. And if you go down to about right there where my finger is, you'll see Chapter 4, Critiquing and Changing Genre. So let's take a look. There it is. So as mentioned here, and I think I kind of repeated a similar sentiment on the description for Project 3, Project 3 is going to be a project that kind of builds on what we learned in both Projects 1 and 2. So for Project 1, you did an analysis and you learned how to identify the core components of a genre. And then for Project 2, you did another kind of analysis, a rhetorical analysis, where you looked at kind of the persuasive strategies, the argumentative structure, as well as the kind of the writing style of kind of longer written works. So this project's going to continue that focus on analysis, but it's going to kind of combine those two different topics from 1 and 2. Combine the investigation of a genre with a focus on kind of writing styles and argumentative structure. So you're going to look at a written genre, and you're not just going to identify its genre components, but you're going to do a critique of it. So you're going to kind of make your own argument about what are the strengths and weaknesses of that genre as it's used by multiple audiences. So if we take a quick look at the assignment here, you'll see under Invention, in this paragraph, I talk about what you might want to pick when you're choosing a genre. So it's probably a genre that you already interact with, right? Probably one that's a popular one, so you can see different aspects of it. So as mentioned here, if you're going to use patient health information forms as one of your genres, then one would presume that everyone's visited a doctor's office, and by patient health information forms, that's just the document you have to fill out whenever you're a new patient or you return to see a doctor. But medical staff, for instance, are a smaller audience that interacts with that genre in a different way. And then once you've chosen that, most of the work of your analysis is going to be doing a thick description of it and thinking about its multiple uses. And there's a bunch of questions in Chapter 4 in particular, which we'll look at in a second. They're going to be useful for you in planning out how to do a genre critique and maybe how to pick a genre that's going to be a good one for you based on your experience and your interest in taking on this project. So let's go back to the points here. So again, I'm just kind of going through the highlights of Chapter 4 of Scenes of Writing. Point out the things that I think you want to make sure you've covered and understand how that material there is going to be useful for you in this project. So number one would be this kind of distinction from the move from analyzing to critiquing genres. So you analyze the genre when you executed Project 1, right? But you're going to take another step here at this assignment by doing a critique of a genre. And critique, we might think of as being kind of purely say negative things or identify what we think is wrong with a particular item under review. If we think of to be critical is to be negative about something, but critique here, as defined in Scenes of Writing, is rather to just kind of be objective, be rigorous, but try to think of both the strengths and the weaknesses of what's under review. And as also mentioned in that chapter is thinking about how you're doing an evaluation of the genre. So you're going to have to use appropriate criteria, appropriate frames for evaluating that genre and finding out how it is strong and how it is weak as it's used for different functions and for different audiences. So that's so this shadow that keeps coming in is, once again, there's a cat that's interrupting our screencast, which is again why I usually choose not to do these at home. Anyway, moving on. So that's the first thing you're going to get from Chapter 4 that's immediately relevant to your assignment is that move from analyzing to critiquing. So read that section as shown here is on pages 148 to 153. And that'll explain, how you're going to make judgments and use your judgment in doing this assignment. Now, number two, also extremely useful here, is this little chart that appears in 161, also repeated here. These are questions you think about when you're critiquing genre. So it's mentioned here, these are going to be really useful in writing the assignment, but maybe you want to use these, like kind of give short answers to these, or at least think about them when you're choosing which genre to work for. Because if you can't answer these questions, you may have chosen a genre that's too simple, or one that you don't know enough about to work with. And then when you're actually writing it again, these are kinds of questions that will allow you to think about how effectively the genre works for what it's supposed to do. And then finally, I think you'll find this one super useful. We have two student sample student papers of genre critiques. They're on pages 154 to 158 and 164 to 173 in your text. And much like the sample pages that provided for Project 2, which a lot of you mentioned you found very useful, these should be really useful to you in writing Project 3. So one of them is on the report card as a genre. So how useful is a report card for what it's supposed to do? Show a student's academic performance, show their progress through school. What are the strengths of it? The things that it does well, what are its weaknesses, the things that it does poorly. And then the other one, totally different topic, I'm talking about, again, the two sample essays in the chapter, is on marriage announcements, right? And I think that kind of gives you the range of the kind of genres you could take up. It could be some kind of like paperwork style genre that you have to interact with as a student, or as a patient, as a parent, or whatever kind of paperwork you find yourself involved with. Or it could be a genre like the marriage announcement, some kind of genre that is only used rarely by people unless you get married a lot of times. And I'm not judging you if that's the case. It's not for me to judge, whether that's a good or bad thing. We're going to restrict our judgment to genres for this project. See, I'm pointing at you, but I'm pointing. I just keep leaning forward, and when I point, you can't see my finger because it's down here. But I like this camera angle, and I think I'm going to use it for future screencasts because it makes my forehead look really large, and that makes it seem like, I assume that makes it, you think I'm really smart because like my brain is pushing my head up and stretching out, stretching my forehead. All right, I think that is that's a quick kind of summary of key points from Chapter 4. So read the chapter, don't just read my synopsis, but these are things to keep on a lookout for, and hopefully you can, because I've made it abundantly clear, you'll know how they relate to your Project 3. So I'll be back going towards Thanksgiving with some screencasts that will address those other two chapters in Scenes of Writing, and some other tips on writing Project 3. I'll also be sending back your evaluated Project 2s as we move forward. Now again, because of the holiday, because the university is closed on Wednesday, I won't be having my normal office hours, as you might have imagined. I'll also, it's unlikely I'll be on campus Monday and Tuesday because I'll be traveling a lot next week. But I am available via phone or text or email or any other way you'd like to get in touch with me as per usual. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll be back to talk to you soon.